CSS3, or there's a few things that it does, but any kind of things that you've worked on your project? Not yet. Okay, but you've been looking at it to see what it does. So we'll have a look at a few technologies. I'll show you some technologies as well that are still in prototype, and they are yet to be released. Because everyone's been talking about HTML5, CSS3, it's the future, and this, that, and the other. And yes, it is. It is the future. It's not the present. There are some things that you can actually use now that will work very, very well, but you have to be very careful when you do use it. It's like anything that's new. It's not going to work for everyone. And with the danger of using something like new technologies is that people use different browsers, and cross-browser compatibility is the biggest issue. And unfortunately, the browser that's most compatible, that's most used, is Internet Explorer. The majority of users on Internet Explorer are on IE6, 7, and 8. And IE6, 7, and 8 don't work with HTML5 and CSS3. There are workarounds. And what I mean by using CSS3 very effectively is you can use these technologies, but make sure whatever you do that the technology that you're trying to present still works, or the content you're trying to present still works on these older browsers. And the kind of philosophy that I always look at is how can your website degrade gracefully, in terms that it might look absolutely amazing in the most modern browser that you've got, but when you look at it in IE6, for example, it still works, but it doesn't look as good. So that's basically what you have to look at, and you have to do a lot of testing to make sure. But the advantages of obviously using things like CSS3 is that you can have a very, very presentable website that does look amazing, that using all these amazing features. So one of the features or it's more of a technique of looking at how we can create CSS3 ribbons. Who's heard of CSS3 ribbons? Okay, I'll show you, a lot of websites are using it. It's like a fashion trend. Every now and then there's a fashion trend that comes out, and everyone wants to do it, and everyone wants to use it. So you'll see it once you've seen one. You'll notice that, oh God, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again. And I'll show you some real-life examples of these CSS3 ribbons. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at a few technologies that surround what CSS3 does, and then we'll have a look at one specific technique, and I'm going to code that with you directly so you can actually see how it's created. Okay, and the nice thing is this ribbon here degrades gracefully, that it will still work in older browsers, but it won't look as good. Okay? It won't have that 3D depth, it won't have the niceties in there, but it's still functional, which is always useful. Okay, so the first thing is let's have a look at some aspects or some technologies of what CSS3 can do. So I'm just going to load up the browser. Now, in terms of using, so if I just load this one up over here, there's a whole host of tools that allow you to create CSS3 quite effectively. But before I want to do that, I just want to show you a presentation that kind of inspired me to look into CSS3 in greater detail. And this was basically Apple. Apple wanted to promote the use of CSS3. And if you look on their website, a lot of what they do is HTML5 and CSS3. One good example is, if you look at the menu here at the top, if I zoom in on that one, notice how it scales. I'm zooming in using Command+ on the browser, which is Safari. This will work on all modern browsers, but on older browsers, it won't give you that flexibility. And normally when you zoom in, if you look at the graphics, you see they're all pixelated, because they're graphic-based, but if you look, the menu itself is not a graphic. It's basically rendered using CSS3 and HTML5. Actually, it's using one of the gradients on CSS3, and it's also using something called SVG. Who's here heard of SVG? SVG is scalable vector graphics. Because on the web, you've never been able to have vector graphics. If you wanted to have an image, the only way you would be able to put an image on is basically is either GIF, JPEG, or PNG, which is pixel-based. And when you zoom in or scale it up, that's what you will get. But using SVG, you can scale it up and down as much as you want, and you'll never ever lose any quality. And the advantage is, as you can see, I've zoomed in, so if I'm visually impaired, sometimes you may need to zoom in, or if you're using a small device and you zoom in, you'll never lose quality. And you'll start to notice that a lot of websites and a lot of new technologies that are being implemented will give you that flexibility. But apart from the Apple website, this is what I wanted to show you. If I go to HTML5, although they promote it as HTML5, they've got a showcase. But if I go in here, the video is HTML5. Anyone seen the film Tron? New one. I missed it in the cinema. I was hoping to see it in IMAX, but I didn't get to see it. But this is HTML5 video instead of using Flash video to render it, which in one of the previous Designers Fiesta, I showed you the process of how to embed and create HTML5 video. But what I'm interested in showing you is basically this is what are called CSS3 transformations. Now this video here is just an object. But what I can do with this video is scale it. See that? Okay, and it's the CSS3 that's scaling it. And animation I'm getting is CSS3. The control, as you can see here, the dial you're getting, that's just a HTML5 form called a slider. But the control that's controlling the changing of the CSS3, do you know what technology that's causing the change? JavaScript. So they're working all together. So you're using HTML5 to give you the controls and the video. You're using CSS3 to create the transformations and the animations. And the thing that links them two together is JavaScript. And these are the three core fundamentals of all web technologies that you see on the internet. Any website you see that says HTML5 and it's amazing, it's not only just HTML5. HTML5 is just the structure, the presentation aspects like the animation, not all animation. Like a lot of animation you would do in jQuery. But this here, what's called a transformation, a 2D transformation, is done using CSS3. And the thing that links them two together is the JavaScript, okay, which gives you that flexibility. What you can also do is you can add masks, okay, and you can add perspective. Now, perspective is very, very new because you weren't able to add, this is called 3D, CSS3 transformations, which is only very, very recently, only within the last few weeks, couple of months, that browsers like Chrome, Safari is one of the very first ones that were offered to do this. They've had it for about a year, but Chrome and Firefox only recently introduced 3D transformations to the browser. I'll show you some amazing technology that is still in pre-release of what you can do with 3D transformations and what's called WebGL. Anyone here heard of WebGL? WebGL is Web Graphics Language. It allows you to render and create 3D environments fully within the browser itself. It's a different programming language. You can use this with HTML5 and JavaScript to allow you to create full 3D engines. Again, when you see this presentation, it will wow you what it can do. Okay, it's quite heavy in terms of that it will take up a lot of processing power from your machine. But if you have a relatively fast machine, it will render quite well. But yeah, so that's one example of using CSS3. Let me just show you another one. Again, CSS3, a lot of websites, including our website on Academy Class, allows you to create what are called CSS3 fonts. Again, one of my previous presentations in Designers Fiesta showed you how to embed and use CSS3 fonts. But you can use, because the problem with the web is that you're only limited, or previously with HTML4 and CSS2, you were limited to only using what are called the web-safe fonts. Okay, and with those web-safe fonts, you have probably about 15 fonts that you can use, only the fonts that are installed on people's machines. But with CSS3, you can use any font that you want, absolutely any, which is absolutely amazing. So as you can see here, I can change the font, I can change the size, and this text is selectable. So I can copy and paste that and put it into a notepad. So as you can see, if I select it, which is very useful because for accessibility point of view, a screen reader can access that content, read it, and then read it out. Unlike if it was an image, you wouldn't be able to do that. Just to show you that, if I go to a notepad, okay, and I come over here, As you can see, it selects the text and I can paste it. So the text is readable, which again is very, very useful. And again, these are all called transformations, which are done using CSS3 that you can actually control and change with that. Again, some real-life examples. This, before using CSS2 and HTML4, the only way you were able to do something like this was basically creating an image, something like you could do it in Photoshop or Illustrator. But this is actually rendered in CSS3. This is text that you can actually select. Okay, this is graphics again rendered by CSS3. So it's changed. How the web is changing it's transforming it, which is quite amazing. Here's another example of mixing images with gradients to give you something like a visual representation. But this is not an image. This is selectable text. As you can see, I can select the text. I can select it. I was able to before. But yeah, this is, if you look at the code, you'll be able to notice that this is not an image itself. It's selectable text. The screen reader can actually select it and then read it out for you. So there's many, many uses you can use CSS3 for it. What the fonts, you basically, actually, I'll show you this website, which is great. It's called Font Squirrel. Yeah, it's an attribute called font-face. That is new to CSS3. It wasn't available to CSS2. So you might have been using it. Did you use the font-face? Because, yeah, CSS3, if I just... CSS2 is font-family. And you say, for example, Arial. Yes. Okay, but CSS3 is font-face. Okay, so if you ever use that font-face, it's CSS3. Exactly, yeah. Font-face, it was proposed by Microsoft back in 2000, I think, 99, and they implemented it since IE4 actually, they were the first ones that used it, but they had their own format to use. I think the font has to be a .woff, WOFF. So to make it cross-compatible, if you go to Font Squirrel. So Font Squirrel here, it's basically got a font face generator. You can upload any font that you have on your personal machine, and then that will allow you to create all the files necessary. These are the files necessary for it to be cross-browser compatible. And if you do that, that will work on every single browser from IE4 onwards, which is great. So as I said, you have to research to see which technologies you can use and which ones you can't. Like, for example, that CSS3 transformations. The video, for example, wouldn't work on IE6, 7, and 8. So you have to work on other systems. And what I mean by other systems is you can build something called a fallback. So you can have a Flash video that if it doesn't work, it falls back to HTML5 video, the CSS3 transformation. So if that doesn't work, it uses JavaScript to do that for you. So it's extra work, but it gives you the cross-browser compatibility that you're looking for. So yeah, that's the font face. The other aspects is what you can do. Okay, the other aspects that you can do is just want to show you some CSS. Since CSS3 came out, using HTML5, designers have created tools that will assist you in writing CSS3 a lot quicker and easier without trying to figure out what. I'll give you an example. There's this great website called CSS3 Maker. Anyone heard of it? CSS3 Maker. It's all built using HTML5, but it allows you to code a CSS3 without needing to know the code for CSS3. Okay, it just gives you a visual interface for that. For example, a border radius, which is rounding the corners of your. Let me show you this. This is another tool, border radius. If you go to border radius. Okay, this is again HTML5. It's just a simple, very, very simple website, but just concentrates on one aspect. Because in CSS2, the only way that you can have boxes is they were literally boxes. They have very sharp corners. But using CSS3 now is fashionable. Everyone wants rounded corners. So again, using this technique, you can actually have rounded corners. So what I can do is, if I say, for example, wanted this to be 50, as you can see, that gives me a rounded corner. So it gives me the code as well. So all I have to do is copy and paste that into my code editor, and it'll basically make it rounded corners. The problem is those rounded corners won't be rounded in IE 6, 7, 8. This is what I mean. It's acceptable, but it's not the result that you're looking for. And then again, you can say 0 from here. So if I say 200, so yeah, I can get shapes looking like that. And all I have to do is just copy and paste that code, and then I can use it. You'll notice that it uses the dash WebKit and dash Moz. Does anybody know why we put those prefixes in there? Exactly, yeah, it's the engine of the browser. So dash WebKit is for Chrome and Safari, and Moz is for Firefox. The idea is that there's a new one as well now, which is dash MS, which is for IE 9 and 10, Internet Explorer 9 and 10. So they do make life complicated. But you see, CSS3 is unfinished. It's not finished yet. It's still in draft. And once they've finalized it, you won't need to use these. And when new technologies come out, before the W3C say, yep, we're not going to change it anymore, the browsers want to use that technology. So they use their own version of it, their own prefix. But like the newest browsers, the ones that are available today, like Chrome 14, which is the latest one, if you just type in border dash radius, it'll work. It doesn't need the dash WebKit. But the older versions of Chrome needed the dash WebKit. Okay, so these are the prefixes. So to make it compatible with everyone, it's best that you use the whole list of code. Okay, so if we go back to CSS3 Maker just to show you what this is. So again, here I can actually change. Notice how the change happens, and I can actually change that and change the color, and so on. And I can change it from dashed to dotted, and so on. And say, for example, if I go solid, I can actually, again, copy, download, use that code, and all I have to do is copy and paste. Not only that, it also tells me what it will work on which browsers, so I have an idea what works, what doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, what I can do. Which again is quite useful. Again, you've got this border radius. Again, you've got gradient. So with CSS3, previously with gradients, you were only able to create gradients using the image. Go to Photoshop, create an image. Maybe you would create a 1 pixel image and then repeat X. Okay, but you no longer need to do that. You can actually generate everything using the browser. Now you're probably thinking, why? Why would I want to do that? Well, 1 pixel doesn't cost a lot, but it's actually quicker and easier. The reason it's quicker is because if you have, let's assume just one gradient you're using on your website, they have to download the HTML, so that's 1 file. They have to download the CSS, that's 2 files, and then they have to download the image, that's 3 files. That's 3 requests asking for the server. Okay, and that's just for 1 image, let alone if you have a lot of images. So by using this, you only need to download the CSS. Yeah. It basically wouldn't understand the gradient instruction, which is this here, gradient, and it'll be completely nothing. But what you can do is say before that, just before this line, put background color, and it'll be just a solid color. What you can also do is say background and put a URL and say repeat X. So basically, the browsers that don't understand this will basically use the image, and the browsers that do understand it will override it with a gradient. So you can work on fallback. That's what I mean by a fallback system, allowing for both engines. And I've got another, actually, I'll show you now. There's this other website here called CSS3 Please. Okay, and I don't know how he's figured this one out, but he's managed to go into the actual engine code of Trident, which is the engine for IE6, and figure out the algorithm that will allow it to render gradients when it wasn't meant to. Quite clever. I don't know how it works, but it works. Okay, so here we have like gradients. So here we have, for example, if I wanted to create a gradient, you can put these. This is very similar to the other example, but as you can see here, he's added one line here called filter. Okay, and it works out these transformations, which will allow it to work in IE 6, 7, 8, and 9. So basically, just by putting these values in, you can copy it, paste it, put it into your code, and you've got cross-browser compatibility. Now, I'm saying this, but you do have to test it, okay? Because I've tested it and it's worked on some occasions, but the more complex the gradient I've created, the less likely that it is to work. So for each time you do run it, test it, test it, test it. If you can't... No, this bit here is just the gradients. If you want to use round corners doesn't work in IP6. But saying that, I do have another technology for rounded corners, okay? Which if you go to rounded, how do you spell it? Corner. Rounded corner. That's the one. So how do you create rounded corners in a browser that doesn't support rounded corners? That's exactly what you do. Is you create 4 images which are little corners on the edges, and then you build quite a complex CSS to put the bits where they belong. And it takes a long time to create that. Whilst using this website, it does it all for you, which is quite amazing. So basically, you put in your parameters, how many pixels, la-di-da-di-da, and then you say create rounded corner, and as you can see, it puts 2 div tags, one inside of another, and it uses the images, as you can see, PNG, and then you can download these images and then put that into your website. And this allows you to create rounded corners for websites that can't support rounded corners. Okay, which is very, very useful. So always think of cross-browser compatibility, because you have to do your own research to find out how many people use what browsers where. Actually, an interesting statistic is gs.statcounter, is you basically need to keep an eye on who's using what, where, and when. Anyone familiar with gs.statcounter? gs.statcounter is basically a tool that collects global statistics from all around the world of usages of different browsers. So as you can see here, we have a running trend. Trend that we can see is that IE is on a decline. Okay, and we have Firefox, which is running quite steadily, but the fastest ever growing browser in history is we have Google Chrome. As you can see, the growth of Google Chrome there, at one point it will actually override Firefox and IE if it carries on at the rate that it's going. And you can actually, if we look at this UK-wise, United Kingdom, for the first time ever in the last couple of months, there are more Chrome users than Firefox users. Okay, which is great. And one of the things, actually, let's do a little statistic. Let's do a little survey here. Who here uses Chrome as their main browser? Put your hands up. Yeah, if it's your main browser. Okay, and who here uses Firefox? Okay, and who here uses IE? Okay, that works. Okay, so as you can see, it kind of follows that. There's more Chrome users, secondly Firefox, and less IE, but probably because you're web developers. But in the general public, there's more IE users than anything else. But as you can see, the trend will change. Also, Google released this website, which is a very useful website, which is called Evolution of the Web. Oh, on. This one? Yeah, it is this one. I want the direct link. There you go. It's AppSpot. Okay, Evolution of the Web. Anyone here seen this website? Okay, it's a great website because it again shows you the new technologies that come out and which browsers use them. Again, it's all rendered using HTML5 and CSS3 transformations. So you can actually go back and have a look at the history of the internet since it first started. Okay, back in 1990. This is in commemoration of the World Wide Web, which this year is his 20th birthday. And as you can see, the evolution of different browsers. And no, this is when CSS2 kind of came out, and these little ribbons here show you as these new technologies have grown, and as you can see, you've got tons and tons of technologies that have taken it to what it is. And as you can see, one of the reasons why Chrome is so successful is look at how many versions have come out only in just the last year. There's 5 versions that have come out just in 2011 alone, and it's auto updates. You don't have to update now, and it's just you launch it and it's updated without you even realizing, which is amazing. So as you can see, remember I was talking about CSS3 transformations. 3D transformations came out in 2008, and only around about 2010 that it started being used, which again is quite amazing. And who's seen the Expressive Web Adobe website? I'll show you this one. Again, this is an example of HTML5 and CSS3. Again, there's no Flash here. There's no other plugins. This is pure HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. There's nothing else they're making. So again, if I look at CSS3 animations, as you can see, all this is animated using CSS3. Pretty amazing. And again, you can control that. Again, this is a slider, which is HTML5. And then the JavaScript is what changes the parameters of telling it how high it should jump. Okay, so, and again, if you want to look at CSS3 gradients, but please do visit this website and have a look at it, play around with it. It'll give you an idea of what it can do. There's always been that debate. There's Flash, HTML5, which one will take over? And a lot of cases it is, and I read this quite interesting tweet that somebody said, is that HTML5 and CSS3 or Flash, HTML5 and CSS3 will do what Flash does today in 2 years' time. So Flash is always like 2 years ahead. So if you're trying to create some simple stuff, you might as well not do it in Flash and do it in, like if you're doing simple animation, then do it in CSS3. But the danger of that is that Flash is 98% coverage. 98% of people will be able to see the animation. If I do a CSS3 gradient, 49% of my users will be able to see it. So this is where you then have to make the decision. Or if it doesn't work, does it degrade gracefully? If it doesn't, then you have to fall back on Flash. Okay? But come 2 years down the line, you know, the statistic might be at 95%. I don't know. And Flash would have been 2 years ahead from that point. It would do something else. There are some amazing technologies of what Flash will do that you will see. Yeah, so this is, again, as you can see, it's a very, very useful website because apart from it being fun, you can kind of play around and see what it does. It has got a very, very useful statistic that it tells you what browsers can use what from this statistic here. And as you can see, colors and even mobile browsers, because there's as you can see, everyone's kind of moving to mobile. Actually, one of my next lectures is basically talking about using web technologies to build a mobile web app and how that impacts it as well. Okay, which again, it's got some tutorials there and some generators that we're going to talk about as well. Okay, so if I go back to this here, so I just want to show you the transformations, and then I'll start working on a ribbon thing because I don't have much time. So yeah, you can rotate it, and it gives you the rotations. You can scale it. You can even run animations. Click on View Animation. See, I can say do transitions, text shadow, box shadow, so you can do drop shadows as well, text rotation, and then the font face, which is adding your own custom fonts as well. So there's a lot you can do, which again is quite useful. Any questions at this early stage? Reflections, you can, yeah, I guess if you do a transform it, do an exact copy and transform it, and then if you take that side, put it over that side and that over side, that will, or that side to that side. Yes, you can create reflections. Yeah, yeah. I have to kind of play around with it, but yes, logically I can see that there is a possibility to do so. And then you can add a gradient, so it looks like it's opaque at the top and transparent at the bottom. So yes, you could do that. Okay, so let me show you the couple of things that I've got, which is, yeah. Anyone heard of Adobe Edge? Adobe Edge is a new product that they only announced last week, or 2 weeks ago. And the idea is it allows you to create CSS3 animations. It's similar to Flash or After Effects to give you the tool. So let me just show you. I've got Edge here, so let me just launch it. One of my other presentations will be showing you Adobe Muse, which was launched roughly about the same time, which allows you to build websites with no code at all. It's a lot easier version of what Reader is. Okay, so you can download Edge from Adobe, and it's a pre-release version. And as you can see there, you can use it for 99 days with no cost at all. After that, it will be officially released with a license fee to it. Okay, but if I just open up an example, which I have here. And if I go back and play that, okay, and press play, looks like a Flash animation. Yeah? There's no Flash in it at all. This is pure CSS3, Canvas, HTML5, and JavaScript to give you that effect. Basically, you're using something. Who's here used After Effects? It's got a very, very similar layout to After Effects. So if you've used After Effects, it's very easy. They've decided not to go down the Flash route. I think rumors, or what my speculation is that Adobe bought out Macromedia, and so they inherited the Flash interface. I don't think they really liked it, because over the years they've changed it slightly, and they've added more and more After Effects features to it. So I'm presuming, and I might be wrong, it's my speculation, that Flash CS6, when it comes out, it will look very, very similar to this. Basically have a After Effects timeline interface. But as you can see, it's, to animate things, you have your objects, which are images. So here's the logo, for example, and if I open that up, and as I bring that out, I bring this out, see there's the logo, and you can see it's got this is a CSS3 transformation. The Y changes from a low value to a high value as time progresses. So, and again, you add these elements to build the animation that you want. Once you've built it, you export it, and once you've exported it, it comes out as HTML5, CSS3, which I can show you. Where is it? We look inside here. Edge. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it creates these three files that again, if we look at the source of that one, View, Developer Tools. Again, one of the nice things that I use about Chrome is it's got these developer tools, and I can actually see all the code that's generated. Okay. See, these are all the CSS3 transformations. It's all embedded inline. You can always take that out and put it into a separate CSS3 file. Using a tool like Dreamweaver, there's a little button that says externalize CSS. Yeah. How to start integrating to browsers that don't understand it? Yeah, good point. They CSS, if you've got a transformation and a browser doesn't understand a transformation, it just doesn't play it. So this is where you have to then think of a fallback, where you would design an alternate like Flash, and if it doesn't work like this, you then go to Flash. But the advantage of doing this, any advantage compared to using Flash? The advantage would be, what device do you know that doesn't use Flash? If you've got the iPhone, iPads, if you wanted to create an animation or a Flash banner, advertising for example, it just wouldn't show. So you have to use a tool like this that will give you the ability to create that. And then this is more work for you as a designer and developer, because you have to do it twice. But until they've decided and chosen one way compared to another, unfortunately, to make it cross-browser compatible, you'd work on two versions. Alternatively, there is a tool called Wallaby, which I have here, Wallaby. Okay, again, you can download this from Adobe website. What Wallaby is you can upload any FLA file, the Flash authoring file, and it will convert it to HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript for you. Okay, it doesn't work 100%. Again, it's a technology preview. You do have to test it. Okay, so and keep the animation simple. If you've got like blurs and gradients and this, that, and the other, but if you've got simple animation, something like what we just showed you there, then yes, you can convert that, and that will work quite effectively. Anything more complex or anything that's got interactivity, don't expect it to work as of yet. But it can be a stepping stone. You can convert a simple thing and then add to it using JavaScript and so on afterwards. Alternatively, anyone heard of Swiffy? Swiffy is a Google product. Okay, Google Swiffy. And what Google did is basically you upload the Swift file. As long as you upload the Swift file, it will convert it to HTML5, CSS3 for you. But there is a downside. The downside is it must be an AS2 file, ActionScript2 file. If it's an AS3 file, it won't work. But again, you can open up in your FLA, downgrade it to AS2, and then bring it in here, and this will give you the effect. Let me just show you an example of the gallery. Here's an ad to Google Chrome. If you test this in an iPhone or iPad, it will work. This is the Flash animation one at the top. This is the Swiffy conversion after it's converted. It's pretty much identical. Again, the timing is slightly off, but I can't tell the difference between the two, okay, which is amazing. Yeah. And again, if we have a look at another gallery, Symphony Orchestra. As you see, these are animations. One was created in Flash, and then just click one button and it converts it to HTML5 for you. It used to be the case that if you wanted to create anything that has CSS3 animations or JavaScript animations, that you have to be a high-end JavaScript coder, and you have to be like understand trigonometry and mathematics and know how to move things using numbers. But there are tools that are coming out that allowing you to create these animations very, very easily, very, very quickly. Again, there is another tool that's coming out. It's called Animatable. Maybe it's out already, but last time I checked, it's not out yet. Coming soon. Okay, but Animatable is, again, it's an online web app. You log on and you create your animations through the browser, and then it will produce the HTML5 and CSS3 for you. There was a little clip that they finished with it. So here's an example of an animation that they created. They created a whole film, like a short film, using the tool, and there's no Flash involved. It's pure HTML5 and CSS3. The interface looks very, very easy, and it's taken ideas from Premiere or any video editing tools to allow you to create your animation to how you want it. So yeah, keep an eye out for all these new tools that are coming out. There is another one called Essentia Animator. Okay, Essentia is a product that I'll be introducing later on, or Essentia is a company. One of the technologies, Essentia Touch, that I'll be talking about in the next seminar. But Essentia Animator allows you to create, again, animations using a Flash-like interface that you can use. Okay, all right, let's move on to the main topic of what we're here is to talk about CSS3 ribbons. So with CSS3 ribbons, let me just show you a few ribbons that are available on the web. One we've got on our website called academy-class.com. Okay, this is our blog-based website. I don't think the firewall in this building likes it, so I'll show you another one. Another example, design.ag. Loading. Change it since I've looked at it. Try this one. Yoast.com. Not having much luck. I will blocking all the websites I want to show you, or from dash the couch. Here you go. See these? Okay, these are 3D ribbons that you can create purely using CSS3. Before that, you would have to create an image, a PNG, overlap, and put it into a div tag to give you the effect. But you can actually create these using CSS3. I've got an example here, which is a finished example, and I'm going to run you through very, very quickly how this one was created. So if I open this one here, links.html. Okay, so this is here using CSS3 ribbon. There's no image involved in this. This is purely done using CSS3. So I've got the drop shadow for the box, the rounded corners. This here has got a box shadow, and then this is a technique where you can actually add a border, collapse the div tag on itself, and then make 3 sides of it transparent apart from one corner. This gives you a triangle position placement. Gives you the effect that you're looking for, and then you can create a menu from there, which is again quite useful. If we open this up in Firefox, I'll just move to Dreamweaver. Is not enough. I need 3. Right. So much to talk about. Okay, so if I go back to Dreamweaver, so okay. There you go. So if I open that up over here, okay, the reason I want to open this up, if I remove the CSS, disable all styles, see what it looks like. It's just pure HTML. These are 3 links. These are just a list of tags, and then by adding the CSS, it gives you the effect that you're looking for. So if I go back to Dreamweaver, just so I can go back into it. I'll just define a site. Okay, and I'll call this one CSS3. I'll just pick a folder that has files in. I can open it up. So the first thing is that I did is created a box shadow. Okay, so if I just have a look at the code, okay, and split. So basically, it's just a div box, and then all I did is basically give it an RGBA. Actually, can you read the text from there? I'm going to increase the font because it does look quite small. Okay, code fonts size, let's say 12. That's better. Okay, so basically you add a background color, and again I'm using RGBA. So the A is the alpha, so you can actually have an opacity in there. I'm going to turn on live view so you can actually see what it would look like. So there's the box, and then to give it a drop shadow, I'm using the prefixes moz, WebKit, and KHTML. Does anybody know what KHTML is for? It's for the Linux version of the browser. Again, it's about 0.4% of the population that uses it. If you want to include them, you can add that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I just put it in there so you're aware of what it is, and then you put the last one. The first two is your position. Okay, you know, like a drop shadow can be offset from the object, but if you want it not to be offset, you get what's like an outer glow. So if you want an outer glow, you set the X and Y to 0, as you can see here, 0, 0, and then the third one, which is the amount of blur. The higher the value, the more blurrier it is. Okay, so I put here 8 pixels, and again the color 0, 0, 0, which is black, and then 0.3, how transparent it is. Its opacity is 0.3. Okay, 30%. Okay, and that gives us that drop shadow. So that's the first thing that I did, and then I added the border radius. And if I turn on live view, as you can see, border radius, these are the values that I put in. That gave me the effect that I'm looking for. And then the last thing is I created the triangles. Okay, so if I turn on the live view, I created another div here called triangle. Okay, and as you can see here, what I did is I created the 4 corners, 4 sides of the triangle, of the box, I mean. So it goes top, right, bottom, left. So the top one is transparent, the right one's got a color, okay, and the other 2 are transparent. The reason that I only get one corner, I get a triangle, which is that one there. I can make it solid. Again, I can choose how big the triangle is, which is the width, and then you collapse it on itself, 0, 0, so it's not actually a box. Okay, and that gives you the triangle, and then you can position it where you want with top and left, according to where you want. And then the next thing is you can use rotate. And if I turn on live view just to show you, the problem with rotate is, if I use rotate, the danger of using rotate is that not all browsers understand transformations, so it might not always work. The preferred way is basically change where this color is. Instead of it being top right, you can make it be bottom left, so the triangle will rotate because of its position. But if you want to use transformations, you can do that. It was in the original specification that you can use minus values, because you got from 0 to 360, which is the number of degrees. If you want to go minus 45, you should be able to, but that doesn't work. I've tested it. So you have to go to 315. So minus 45, which is 360 minus 45. 15. Once you've got all that, you put it all together. And as you can see here, here you go. I've created the full aspect, putting it all together to, and then created the CSS. And there's the CSS for it. So yeah, there's the border radius. There's the shadow. Hello. Okay, thanks. Okay, and there's the rectangle. There's the box shadow, and then there's the 2 triangles, which are the ones on either side. Okay, triangle L and triangle right, and then the rest of it is just standard CSS. Okay, that's very, very quickly. The files are there for you to use. I'll give you the link. Any questions? Yeah, get that link that I gave you. The files are there, so you can download them, have a look at them. They're the files for all 3 lectures. So if you miss my lectures, the other 2 later on, you've got the files for them there as well. Plus, you'll have the recordings. Yeah, I've used transform. Obviously, if you don't use transform and you take the transform out, they will just look horizontal, which degrades gracefully. That's fine. I'm happy with that. but for those that have got a fancy browser, it'll look quite fancy. So yes. So do test it to make sure it degrades gracefully. It'll just look horizontal. Yeah, that's the CSS3 transformation. Degrades to just, yeah, they'll sit, yeah, so they'll just look. Yeah, it depends on the style that you're looking for. If it looks acceptable, then you can say, okay, but if it's imperative for branding and style, then you may degrade gracefully. You can use an if IE. So if IE, load this image instead. You could do that, yeah, quite easily. Any other questions? Yeah, but you can use SVG, scalable vector graphics, to create any multitude of shapes that you want, and then using CSS3 you can transform that. CSS3 doesn't generate shapes as such. The only shapes it creates is a box, which is essentially your div, and then you can then change the corners of that. But again, if you change the corners, say if the box is 100 by 100, and you give it a border radius of 100 by 100, what do you think you'll get? You get a full circle. So again, that's one way that you can actually create. You can create. I've seen, like with the ribbons, another aspect. Let's see if I can find it. So curve. So you got what, like the triangle, and you wanted to curve one edges of it. Not quite. No, there are ways around it. Which again, using SVG, you can create custom shapes to give you the effect that you're looking for. But speech bubbles, CSS3. Again, that's another very popular thing that's come out. So you might have seen these before. So these are done purely using CSS3, which look quite effective. Here's some more examples. I like that one there, which again, that's all CSS3. So yeah, these are examples that you can play around with CSS3 to give you the effect that you're looking for. But it's knowing what to look for that will give you the effect that you're looking for. Yeah, I remember. I was going to show you some prototyping stuff. CSS3 regions. This is a prototype browser. Again, you can download this from Adobe, but it'll basically show you what is coming out. There's no browser that supports these technologies as of yet. Examples. Okay, so here is something called threading that, as you can see, I've got 3 boxes. As I resize the browser, the text flows from it from one to another, which is, to do this to CSS2 is just impossible. Okay, but you can do that with CSS3. Here's an amazing example. With fluid layouts, yeah, it's great for fluid layouts because then as you change the size of the browser or the device changes, the text reflows accordingly, which is what you want. But in older browsers, there are techniques to get around that, but it's just not possible. Right, last example, very quickly. Here, as you can see, the text, notice how the text goes around the image, because then you can outline the areas like a text wrap in a design view. And as I slide it, look at the car. As it comes in, it automatically detects that there's a moving object, and the text automatically reflows from that. And if I then change the iPad to portrait, notice, as you can see, it changes to 3 columns. If I go to a Galaxy tab, it changes to 2 columns. So it's very, very clever, and this is all just pure CSS. There's just magic. Right, I'll leave it at that because I've got another lecture to go to. And thank you very much.